Welcome to Consider Yourself Hugged, a place to find comfort and support as you navigate your mental and emotional well-being. So sit back and relax, unless you're driving, and get ready for this week's hug. So Michelle just came back. Oh, is that embarrassing for you that you spilled?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
What did you spill? A drink out of let's see your mug again. It's your favorite mug, isn't it?
Yes, it is my favorite mug.
It's the
Yeah, I
one
have soda in here and I spilled it on the stairs on the way up here.
so you had to. Do you have carpet? I don't
Mm.
remember.
And not on the stairs.
Okay, so you just had to clean it up.
Yeah, so I wasn't that late. I was a couple minutes late.
So we're recording like 11 in the morning. She has soda, but I told Michelle, if you're not watching, you can't see this, but I'm holding up my Scooter's coffee cup. So I discovered when I went to Chicago for a speaking thing last week, I guess, that if you have a Scooter's near you, to be clear, I don't like their regular just coffee with half and half, which is usually what I drink. But my friends up in Chicago drink this. Is it caramelicious? Caramelicious. What do you say? Caramel or caramel?
I feel like I use both.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think it's called a caramelicious. But when they were ordering, when I was with them, they asked for non-fat, and the woman said, "Do you want sugar-free caramel syrup?" And I was like, "Yes." So they call it a super skinny. It doesn't have very many calories in it at all. But anyway, I drank half of it yesterday and then I drank half of it today, but I mixed it with black coffee twice. So I'm stretching this sucker out for like 2 whole days and it is so good. So that's my happy place for the day.
Sounds very good.
And you're drinking soda.
I am.
So, book club. This has been the weirdest week, I think, book-wise for Michelle and me. So we did the From Here to the Unknown, which was amazing. The Great Unknown. What was it? From Here to
From here to the great unknown.
the Great
Yes.
Unknown.
Yeah.
Did that last week. This week we're doing The Hiding Place. Next week we're doing the Southern Guide to Vampire Slaying.
The Southern Club Guide to Vampire Slaying.
Are you sure? You're
I'm
probably
pretty
right. Let's
sure.
look.
I'm
I,
pretty
I
sure.
should trust you because you're the one who always remembered. That's a long stinking title.
It's the Southern Book Club's
Okay.
Guide to Slaying Vampires.
Okay. So
Big
because
change. Big change.
big change. And Michelle and I are both doing like Audible for mostly everything recently because she drives and then I've had a lot of drives. So it's like 13 hours and we both decided we would go ahead and start. So we didn't put it off. And she said it's like whiplash this week.
Mm-hmm. Very, very different. So, like, if you are reading along with us and you just finished The Hiding Place and you're getting ready to start the next book, just kind of be aware it is a very different book and it's a different genre than probably you or I, Tammy, are
Ever.
used to reading. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's intriguing, but it's
You're
it's kind
so
of different.
I love the way you use the words that are just, let's be positive. It's now we, and by whiplash, oh my gosh, we went from the Lisa Marie Presley, which had a few amount of the F's and the GDs, which didn't offend either one of us because it was just, that's how they grew up talking. And it was, so it was very authentic. And then we went to The Hiding Place, which is a blatantly what God can do for us inspirational Christian book. And now we're reading
Crazy. Yeah.
a vampire book. And I think the thing we want you all to know. So my other friend, Michelle, so Michelle, if you're listening, I have like 5 Michelles. I want you to definitely comment. She recommended it to us. And we had asked her for something like light and funny, but also uplifting. And so she sent it to me and said, "Oh my gosh, I recommended it to 4 people. They loved it. It was the best book." And so we're expecting lighthearted. And just know that when it says vampire slaying, we haven't gotten to the actual vampire. We don't know about that exact thing yet, but there's some pretty disturbing scenes in there. So just be ready. But we also don't want to stop. We were like, should we continue? Because this is not our thing, Michelle or me. But we decided we're going to, we need to. So, but it's generated so much conversation, hasn't it?
Oh, so much. And I think that's why it's an amazing book club book because it would generate so much conversation. And I'm definitely to a part now where I want to hear more. I want to know kind of how this next chapter is going to go. And it's kind of been a up and down for me with that, but at the
Mm.
same time, um, still intriguing.
Well, tell them what you said yesterday about the people. Do you remember? Because it was funny. I mean,
So there was, I mean, and there's some, and I will say this, there is some scenes that happen, and this book reminds me very much like a cult classic, like some of the movies that
mm,
we would have watched when were young that turned into cult classics. And so there are some scenes that are visualizations that are kind of over the top. And I
creepy.
tend to stay away from those. I have talked before, I was like a nurse at a level 1 trauma center. And so for me, it's not that they bother me or that I think about them later or have nightmares. I just have enough visuals in mind. I don't particularly read things or watch things to get
That are
more.
gonna, mhm.
And so,
Like
um,
horror is definitely not your genre of
no,
movie.
absolutely not. I just don't. And so I had just finished kind of a section of that. So I wasn't super excited about the book right at that moment anyway. And we were talking about whether we were going to continue it or not. And I was like, well, I don't really want to stop it because, I want to see where it goes. And this book was highly recommended. And I feel like there's going to be parts that are going to kind of like turn it around. But I said, but to be honest, I don't care about any of these people or what happens to them.
She's like, she's like, I don't really care what happens to any of these people. I'm like, I know, because what is wrong with these people? And most of our texts or conversations are either what? And then the other person says, I know, right? So
Yeah.
hopefully this has intrigued you a little bit to say, well,
But get ready. It is out. It is not like either of the other two books. And kind of, so we just wanted to prepare you a little bit that there will be some things that you'll be like, what?
yeah, I was getting my nails done yesterday. And so I was listening, and I know my hair would have covered my AirPods. And if anybody was looking at me, and of course you would only see my face now if you're on YouTube, but I was like, I mean, my face was just all contorted for this whole part of this chapter. So yeah. Anyway, the laugh out loud part that my other friend was telling us about, I did early on. I haven't laughed out yet loud, but I'm laughing with Michelle, and so that makes it all worth it. Okay,
Yeah.
well,
It's worth it, but it's different. So we just wanted to give you a warning.
because I think Michelle did give y'all a warning before the Lisa Marie book that there was language. But we didn't give you really a warning before this vampire book. So
We
now
didn't know. We didn't know. Yeah.
we'll have to end today with consider yourself warned. Oh, well, maybe we should talk about our book.
I think so. Because this book, The Hiding Place, is an amazing book. It is an amazing true story. And yeah, so because I know you had read the book first, I'll let you start and just,
Yeah, I love what you did the other day. And so I just took that and like I have some notes just like before of things that spoke to me. But I thought it was a really good idea just to introduce the book and a little bit of like the background. So I did print some things out. So it was written in 1971, Corrie ten Boom, and she had a couple co-authors. And it's set in the Netherlands during World War II as the Nazis were coming in. And it began, so it's this Dutch Christian family. They own a watch clock shop. And it begins with that whole strong Christian family, like their life in that shop, the community that they had, which I yearn for a lot. I think about, like you and I have talked about the Chosen and the way that the Jewish people there just live in community and eat together. And so you get this this beautiful, like you said, too, visualization of these Christian people eating together, praying together. Every night, the dad reads the Bible. And then the Nazis come. And so the whole story goes from, and it does go back and forth, which I think is a fairly popular way to write, you know, a little bit from present to past, but it goes through the early life and their family, and then when the Nazis start to come in, and so the Ten Boom family decides to hide Jews in their home. And we'll talk a little bit about how they created the actual hiding place. And then there is an arrest and imprisonment, primarily of Corrie and her sister. Her father was involved there as well. And then through the rest of that, we watch, like, I thought the main story was about Corrie's faith, which it is, but it's a lot of it is about her sister's faith and how
Yeah.
Corrie grows in that. And then the end of the book is about Corrie. Um, so she does survive being imprisoned, and then just what she does with her post-war life. So that's kind of the overview. Do you want to throw anything in yet about what spoke to you?
So there really are so many things that spoke to me about the book. One of the things, and I guess I'll just start out here. Corrie ten Boom was in her 50s when this was going on.
Yeah,
And so she was, I mean, I think she turns 50 during the occupation when they're hiding all of the Jews in their home and throughout the concentration camp. And so I think that sometimes, well, I'll just speak for myself. I definitely can have moments where I'm like, is there, should I be planning other things? That didn't come out right.
yeah,
How do I say this? Like in terms of a lot of people kind of as you move into, you know, your 50s and people start planning for retirement and that becomes more at the forefront. Like really all of these things that she did and that she's known for history started when she was in her 50s.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I did a thing yesterday. You and I've done one about, well, you and I did one about New Year's resolutions, and the statistics about people 65 and over is the lowest. And I made the joke, are we just like, because I turned 60, are we just giving up? And I never really thought about the power of that it wasn't like she was 20 or
Mm-mm.
30 or even
No.
really 40. She was, yeah, you're right. She turned 50 at some point during that whole process and basically
Yeah.
started a whole new part of her life.
Absolutely. So I mean kind of that message that it's never too late.
That's really beautiful. Um, Maybe we can just go back and forth. Is that
Okay.
okay with you?
Absolutely.
One of the very first things, um, as we think about this book, I kind of frame it in my head, the lessons, like the early life and then the occupation, imprisonment, and then the after. But in the early life, I actually told Tim about this. There were two things that her father said to her when she was younger that stood out to me. One of them was about, oh, hang on a minute. Which one was it? Oh, oh, okay. I didn't write this down. I thought I did. Her sister or someone she had talked to was reading a poem that had some sort of sexual reference in it. And she was little, like 9, maybe. And so she and her dad used to ride this train together. And it seemed like it was a really sweet time for them. They go into town. And do you remember he would go into town to set his watch by the, what was it called?
Atomic clock.
The atomic
Yeah.
clock. So we would go
Mhm.
into Amsterdam, I think, and just look at it and say, and they would do other things as well. So she asks him, I think the phrase was like sexual,
I
I
think
don't,
it was sex sin. That's what it
sex
was. Like
sin.
sex sin. Yes.
And she said, "What is sex sin?" And I thought that I had written this down, but since I didn't, you tell me. Let me look one more place. Um, oh, I know what. I didn't write it down, but he said, "Corey, would you pick up that box for me?" And it's a really heavy box. And she said, I can't, it's too heavy. And he said, exactly. He said, one day you'll be old enough to know what that means. But right now, if I tried to give it to you, it would be too heavy for you to carry. So let me carry it for you until you're strong enough and old enough to carry it. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow,
You seemed like such a very wise, thoughtful man.
yes. And I can't remember if it's Christy McClellan, I think it's in one of her books. We've talked about her numerous times, but she talks about the Jewish culture. Now, they were not Jewish. Okay, Corrie, the Ten Booms weren't Jewish, but still, in the Jewish culture, Jesus and the rabbis, and even today, are very visual in their teaching. So when they talk about the scripture being as sweet as honey, they actually have honey for the children to taste. And I thought about this lesson being so visual for her, that she tried to pick up this box and it was too heavy, but her father could carry it for her. And I thought that was like, wow, excuse me, but I really sucked as a parent. I probably would have said, you're too young to hear that. Let's talk about that later.
Yeah, he had so many things like that. And the way it describes him, like to I mean, reading the Bible, having prayer nightly, inviting people from the community. He had
Yes.
a lot of friends who were Jewish that it talks about like on the trips to the city that he had a friend that was Jewish and his Jewish friend would get out his scrolls and he would get
Yes.
out his Bible and they would just like passionately talk and compare, not in an adversarial way at all,
Yes.
just as something that they both really enjoyed. They were good friends. And so, like, he is definitely an example of it doesn't matter if you don't completely agree. You can still love people, show respect for them, share your viewpoint, hear their viewpoint. It doesn't have to turn into something negative.
No, it doesn't. I started to watch. Well, actually, will you remind me about a movie to come back to that? Because there was one more thing that he said to her that I did write down that was really powerful. They had just lost someone in their life, and I don't remember who, but they had lost someone in her life. And oh, she had seen the body of a dead baby. Do you remember that scene? They had gone to someone's home and their baby had died.
Yes,
And so
yes.
she asked her father, you know, Dad, Father, what if I die? What if I lose you? How will I bear it? And I do have this written down. So he says, Corrie, when you and I go to Amsterdam, when do I give you your train ticket? And she said, well, just before we get on the train. Why? And he said, exactly. And our Father in heaven knows when you're going to need things too. Don't run ahead of him. When the time comes that some of us will have to die, you will look into your heart and find the strength you need just in time. Again, a visual that was just so beautiful. I'm like, how did he come up with this stuff? I
A
don't know.
wise man, very wise
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, but what I was going to say about him too, there are two movies, sort of. One, there was a movie made sometime, I think, in the 70s. It seemed even older than that. So I just found it on YouTube. It was a Billy Graham production, and I only watched like the first 15 minutes because I literally found it this morning. I don't remember this in the book, so I don't know if there are just different things in the movie versus the book. But in the movie, he, when it came time for the Jews to wear the yellow star, um, he he got in line to wear a star, and he wore that star together with his Jewish friends. So I don't know, if that did happen or not, but it seems like the kind of thing he would do.
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember it from the book either, but yeah, definitely seems character-wise that he would stand with the people. I mean, he just loved people.
Yeah. And it's too, so it was him mainly in the book. The mom died at some point and it was just him. And well, there was a bunch. There were aunts and all kinds of people that were living there. But in the main part of the time with the Nazi occupation, it was her and her sister and Casper. His name was Casper. So, okay, what else do you have?
So I think that like in the book, Corey really makes a point that they had enough, but they weren't wealthy, but they still like gave. And that was just the way they lived. Like the mother was often making food to take to people who,
Yeah.
wouldn't have eaten otherwise. And it just seemed so natural for them. And it was a reminder, not in, um, I mean, it's our culture has changed. Our culture has changed a lot. We don't necessarily
Yeah.
have the same.
What's community? Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. And like our normals have changed. And so like if there was someone who, you knew was really was struggling or might not, I mean, how often do we even know if someone doesn't have enough to eat? And would we, in today's time, just take it upon ourselves to make something and take it to them? That would be considered very unusual today. And back then, it seemed like it was just something that was pretty commonplace. I mean, I feel like it should always be, right? I mean, it should always be commonplace for especially for Christian communities, for Christians, but it would be unusual just to show up at your neighbor's house unannounced with
With
something.
unless there was, for example, in the vampire book, there is a showing up with a casserole, right? After a death.
Well, culturally, when someone dies,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
I
what
think
I'm
we
saying.
still do
Yeah.
that. If someone passes away, and also if someone is in the hospital, there's an injury, there's something going on, people do that, but not in situations often where people just can't afford it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I do think we don't have that community with each other, um, like we used to in that love and that care for others. And I was thinking too about one of the big themes of the book is like responding because you're talking about bringing it to our neighbors and love, which we definitely need to do. And then one of the other themes is even loving those people that we hate, um, or that are treating us poorly, or that we don't know. This is a little bit maybe transition, but there was a part when the Nazis were occupying. So for me, I'm shifting my mind to like the occupation time when they're still in their home and someone brings a baby, a Jewish baby, and wants that baby to stay with them. Well, their pastor was in the house with them, and they said, "Oh, pastor, you live out in the country, and that would be such a great place for this baby." And he said, "I can't do that. It's against the law." And my whole family would be in danger. And you expect me? I don't know. I feel like, did it really go this way? Because he says, do you expect me to put everything at risk for just one? Which automatically makes you think of Jesus leaving, the 99 to go find the one. And
Yeah.
of course, Casper, the dad, says, or if you die, and he says something like it would be an honor for me to die for this one, taking care of this one. So it's loving, and I'm not saying you all should put yourselves at risk out there. But just practicing what we preach and living the way we profess to be important, I guess.
Mhm. Well, I think people like have to know how they're being led. I mean, you know, Nolly, which is another one of Corey's sisters, at one point,
Mm.
like it was very it talked about there were two times when, that family's belief was you did not lie. And it did not matter what it was
Oh,
about,
and
but
Bessie did not, or was it Nolly that did not?
it was Nolly.
It was
And
Nolly, right?
there were two situations where they were asked something in regards to like them hiding Jewish individuals, and both times it led to, and that both times it was the daughter and then Nolly, one of each, and both times it turned out okay. They answered with the truth that you would have thought would
I love
have
that.
really dismantled things. And both times it turned out the way it was supposed to.
Yeah. Which Corey was not happy about. But she learned, and we watch her grow in her faith through all of this. And by the way, we should probably talk about how I mean, there's so much. Obviously, we can't talk about everything that happened, but it was very interesting what they did in their home was they actually moved. So it was in Corey's room, and they moved, I think it was like 3 feet,
I don't remember the
2 feet.
dimension.
It was
Yeah.
2 or 3 feet. So they basically moved her bed forward just 2 or 3 feet, built a wall. I think they put brick up behind it and everything because they said if they just put just drywall, then the Germans could come in and paint, bang on it and know that it wasn't a real wall. And then they just had a little panel that was teeny tiny that they would crawl into and out of. So in the morning they would come out, they would throw all their clothes in there, and then they had to have these drills to see how quickly they could get back in if they knew someone was coming. So very creative way, to hide people in your home. I wish I'd written down, I don't know that it was in the book, how many people they actually wound up saving. But they formed, I mean, it wasn't just them, it was a network, the underground network.
It was a lot that they hid, and people were in and out as they found more permanent housing arrangements
Right.
for them. And it made it clear in the book that the architect who built it like it was an exceptional job, and it was never found. They never found that room.
So, and we will, there are pictures and we'll post them. The other movie, by the way, so the one I talked to you about on YouTube, it's 2.5 hours long, and I'll post a link to that. And it begins with like floating some real pictures. And it's very easy to find pictures online too. So we'll post some links and things so that you can see what the house looked like. And then I'll also post a link. The more current movie, which it was in the 2000s, 2020 something, but it was a play and it's a video of the play. Um,
No.
so I'll post those two things, but I am going to go watch the rest of the YouTube one. So then the next season, so we have this early family that's just beautiful. We see the groundwork laid, and then we see the occupation and when they began to um, have the hiding place for these people. And then after the arrest, so and again, her father was arrested and wound up dying, which was not horrible, right? I mean, because
Fairly quickly to where he didn't have to suffer.
he didn't have to suffer. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
One of the really powerful things for me, and I'm sure it was for everybody, was Bessie praying and thanking God for the fleas.
Oh, yeah. I think that's probably one of the most famous stories from the book.
Yeah. So why
And
don't you share
what a lesson. So one of the and it like there was quite a bit of change like while they were in the concentration camp. And one of the changes did allow Corey and her sister to be in the same building. And I mean, obviously the conditions were um, pretty pretty horrible. The building, it was they slept, it sounded like 9 or 10 to a pallet. Would you say that? I mean, that's
Yeah,
kind of
I
what they
think
call
so.
these pallets where people slept, and people would sleep 9 to 10 people on the pallets. And there were all kinds of fleas, you know, within those living quarters.
They could
And
see them and they felt them, but I
yeah,
mean, it wasn't, yeah,
right. It was extreme. And so Corey's sister would share about Jesus, would share about her faith,
with
any opportunity
everyone.
she
Hmm.
got to do so. And so, harder to do that. I mean, obviously you couldn't if there were guards around. And there just were never guards when they were in their living quarters, and they didn't really know why. And they, her sister was praying, and she was thanking God for everything. She was thanking God even for the captors, and she was very worried about their souls. And she even thanked him for the fleas. And Corey was like, that's
What?
I just can't. You know what? How could you possibly thank God for fleas?" And later on, they found out that the reason they were always left alone in that particular living quarters was because the guards wouldn't come in there because of the fleas.
It was amazing. And
Mhm.
that's where they led Bible studies and she talked about Jesus and it was such an amazing thing. And when you talked about Betsy, I think I called her Bessie before, but it's Betsy.
Yeah, that's why I kept saying her sister, because I'm like, I thought it was Betsy, so I don't want to
It is
say.
Betsy. It is
Okay.
Betsy. Um, when you talked about like her heart for even the Germans, like she would talk about having these prophetic visions of post-war and having this home for like survivors. But what she meant was the Germans, and
Yeah,
she would talk about,
everyone, yeah,
yeah,
wanting,
well, including the Germans.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, and she saw it. She visualized it. God showed her what that was gonna be like. And so really an amazing book, really amazing faith
Mm,
to hear like this about this family's faith and how God guided, and directed them through this time.
yeah. And at the end, so like the last part of the book talks about, so Corey Betsy does die in prison, and Corey is released. And I don't know if it's pronounced, is it Ravensbrook? I know we both
I
listened to it.
think so, yeah.
Ravensbrook is where she was. Um, and so we'll post pictures of that as well. But when she is released, she sort of gets sucked back in. That's probably not the right word, but it looks like she's going to be involved again in this underground, operation. And there's a scene where she is talking to an officer that she knew before. And the conversation was really strange, and he was trying to move it in another direction, and it didn't go well at all. And she almost gave some things away. And what spoke to her, like every time during the book, if they needed something, they absolutely prayed. You know,
Mhm.
when a German would come to the house, they prayed. And when it was supposed to work out, God worked it out. And it wasn't working. And so she realized that God must have something different for her because if he wasn't providing her the words to say or protecting that, then there must be something different, which was about moving on into that home that Betsy saw in her vision and
Mhm.
continuing her work there.
Yeah, it was an incredible book, very faith building.
And that scene was really powerful for me because even with just things like parenting, buying a car. So Tim and I bought a car yesterday. We've been single car people for almost 4 years since sometime during the pandemic, which has been hard, but we made it work. But recently we realized not. And so yesterday, as we're trying to figure out this and that, and then these little glitches, and I did remember this book, and I was like, you know what? This is and you who are listening and watching, I mean, Michelle and I are Jesus following, Bible reading Christians. We are. That's how we live our life unapologetically. Um, so we're not preaching to you. We're just talking about what we do in our lives. But I was like, I just need to say, okay, God, you brought us here and this is yours to work out for me. And so this has really helped to strengthen my faith.
Yeah, me too. It was amazing.
Yeah. And also I do love all things. I've always been pretty intrigued by that time period. And we both have talked about the Nightingale in that same time period. And there's just
And the co-authors met Corrie ten Boom. They had heard about her, but they met her at a church where she was speaking. And she was in her 70s, I think, at that time. And so they talked about like how
didn't know that.
much light and joy that she had like when they met her. And so, yeah.
You know what's cool about that too? I didn't know that, but that sometimes when you think about a family that is that strong in their faith and that like the dad insists on they all read the Bible every night and this and that, you sometimes people can get legalistic in that way. And maybe joy and light is not exactly what comes through, but it should. And in this case, it seems like it did.
I feel like love just permeated. I mean, they had the faith, but they also had the love.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And I don't think I don't know if I told you, but the whole reason that I decided to read this book is that our pastor referenced it in one of his sermons a couple months ago. And I was like, oh, I've heard of that book. I need to read it. And I'm so glad that I did. And I need to
Yeah.
tell him that I did. Um, okay, I'm looking through my notes to see if I missed anything. How about you?
I don't I don't think so. I think I've covered everything that I had in my notes. So I would definitely recommend the book, even if you're listening and obviously we've kind of talked about some of the highlights of the book, still very well worth reading.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And yeah, I can't wait to see to watch to watch the movie just because, putting visualizations to that makes it even better. So, yeah, and the next time that Michelle and I record, we will be together.
Yes.
We're
We'll be
going,
together.
yeah.
Yeah. Should we say where?
Yeah,
No.
no.
We'll be at the
Well, don't give them
beach.
our address because all of our crazy fans will just try to mob us.
I'm not I'm not giving the address if we are not
Just
leaving our homes alone. So there's that too, just in case.
kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be together at the beach. We're doing a little work friend retreat. And did I tell you years ago I had a woman who stalked me? She saw me at a church event and then she began stalking me. And I was doing a seminar in the location of her, and she saw it on Facebook and she went. I didn't say where and I didn't see for who, but she did all this weird stuff and found me and showed up at my seminar.
No.
Yeah, it was very strange. Anyway,
Hmm.
but that was a long time ago. Okay. Well, so we'll be together next week, which will be really fun. And we'll be recording about the vampire book, which will also be really fun. And we try not, like when I said we text and we're talking about it, we are, but we try to not talk too much about it because we would like our conversations to be fresh and not made up.
Yeah. But there's a lot to talk about. So
But there's
yeah.
sometimes when you just can't, like,
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're gonna read this book, get ready. Just hold on, get ready.
get ready. And then the week after will be chatter. And that's the last of our 4 week book club. And then I don't know, we'll see. We'll see what we want to do after that. So that's all I got. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, we would love to hear any
Mhm.
thoughts or lessons, what stood out to you about the hiding place. If you will post it in the Consider Yourself Hugged page on Facebook.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yes, please do that. And then, wherever you're listening, you can comment there, rate, download, share with your friends, all of those things. And then until we're together next time, I'm not going to say what I said.
Okay,
Consider,
good.
consider
Yourself
yourself hugged
hugged.
and
Yes.
warmed.